So now let's just take a quick look at the Quran's version of this story in English translation. That's part of your handout as well. You'll see that the heading on it is Surah 2, 28 to 39. The term Surah basically corresponds to our word chapter. So this is from chapter 2, which is by far the biggest, longest chapter in the Quran. All of the chapters have nicknames, and Surah 2 is famously called the cow, because there is a reference in a couple verses to a cow. So somehow that cow gained headline notoriety. So I'm going to read here. How can you disbelieve in God, seeing that you were dead, and he gave you life? Then he causes you to die, then he gives you life. Then unto him shall you be returned. He it is who created for you all that is on the earth. Then he returned to heaven and fashioned it into 7 heavens, and he is the knower of all things. And when thy Lord said to the angels, I am placing a vicegerent, in Arabic the word is caliph, you may have heard that before, it's a representative or leader. I am placing a vicegerent upon the earth. The angel said, will you place therein one who will work corruption on the earth and shed blood, while we hymn your praise and call you holy? It's like, why are you going to do that? Aren't we enough for you? And of course, it's already anticipating, Cain's murder of Abel, which is also in the Quran. God said back, hey, truly I know what you do not know. And God, Allah, remember Allah, it means the God, right? So, the God. And God taught Adam the names, all of them. Then he laid them, presumably the animals, before the angels and said, tell me the names of these if you are truthful. They replied, glory be to you. We have no knowledge except what you have taught us. Okay. So notice God teaches Adam the correct names. The angels say, well, we don't know their names. The only knowledge we have is what you teach us. You are the knower and the wise. Then God said, Adam, tell the angels the names of these things. And when he had told them their names, God said back to the angels now, did I not say to you that I know the unseen of the heavens and the earth, and that I know what you disclose and what you conceal? So we'll do a little bit more, but please get this point. In the Quran's version, God knows the correct names for everything. There is a correct name for everything. Only God knows what it is. And so Adam is taught the right names for everything. Adam is a passive recipient rather than someone who names, and that even God is interested to see, what he will call them. Here, everything has a right name. It's probably in Arabic. And God knows the right name, not just for animals, but for everything. So the human, hear this now, the human is in a very passive role in relationship to God in this story. And this actually corresponds very well with the Muslim understanding of revelation, divine revelation. I think we've already talked in class, and we'll do more, about the Christian view of divine revelation that includes the human in it. There's a human element. The fact that we have 2 different creation stories at the very beginning already suggests a significant human element. For the Quran, there is no human element. The whole Quran is dictated by God to the angel Gabriel, word by word, word for word, and then Gabriel dictated it to Muhammad. Muhammad that makes no contribution to it, just as Adam makes no contribution toward the naming of the creatures. I hope you'll see the parallel. So in the Bible, perhaps surprisingly, but I think refreshingly, the picture is of God creating the human with a significant measure of creativity and agency, the capacity for forming language, and the ability to kind of make sense of the world through the act of naming. And so there is definitely a human element there, even in the story itself. I'm going to say again, as opposed to the Quran, where the insistence for traditional Muslims is that Muhammad had made no contribution to the Quran per se. It is all precise dictation of God, with no human influence or input really whatsoever. All right. So here it's Adam being taught the names of everything. Then we get this fun thing, and when we may talk about the we more, but anyway, it's Allah, the God, said to the angels. Now God says, bow down before Adam, right? He knows the names, of course. God taught him the names, but he's just trying to show those angels, So they bowed down, except for Iblis. The name Iblis is related to, I think probably where it's first Spanish or Latin, Diablo, diabolical, comes from that root. So Iblis is Satan. He refused to bow down and became arrogant and was among the disbelievers. We said, O Adam, you and your wife shall dwell in the garden and eat freely thereof, whatever you wish, but do not approach this tree, lest you be among the wrongdoers. Then Satan made them stumble therefrom and expelled them from that wherein they had dwelt. And we said, get you down, each of you an enemy to the other. On the earth a dwelling place shall be yours, and enjoyment for a little while. Kind of the implication there is that Muhammad, and he was not alone in this, assumed that the Garden of Eden was elevated in some way, whether up on the top of a tall mountain or perhaps on sort of a heavenly plane. There's literally a fall, you could say, of Adam and Eve when they disobey God. But the big deal here is, again, that the human is entirely passive in relationship to this act of naming. So let me steer it back to our course real quickly. So Christian faith in the natural sciences. Genesis 2, even as I do not take this as a literal historical rendition, I see Genesis 2 more like what we might call a parable. Genesis 1 is definitely more like a hymn, definitely. In this parable, what was I going to say about it? Oh, right. That, we'll just say again, the human being is afforded significant responsibility. There's the assumption that the human creates language and uses language to help make sense of the world around us, naming, developing languages, trying to find appropriate names for the things we see. I mean, we're bordering on kind of like the scientific task. And certainly Genesis 2 is encouraging of the human to undertake the scientific task, because the human is just recognized for this capacity for creativity and such. Need I say one more time that in the Quran's version of the story, there really is no such capacity suggested for the human. Anything we, or even angels, but anything we know is taught to us. We are, I'll say one more time, entirely in a passive relationship to God. Now, that might seem to give God more praise, but I would say only if we think of God as something like an egomaniac, rather than as a loving sharer of power, whose power most typically should be understood as the empowering of creatures. That God doesn't hoard power, God doesn't hoard creativity. God creates creatures in the divine image to reflect God. And really, I do believe that the scientific pursuit is one of the ways that human beings, whether they believe in God, want to believe in God, don't believe in God, are don't care one way or the other, if they're seriously engaged in the natural sciences as a way to understand the world, especially if they're trying to understand it for the betterment of human beings and really all creatures, they're definitely reflecting God, whether they want to and whether they like it. I'll stop there. Yeah, we can talk more about this stuff in class, of course. Thanks, everybody.